Hi everyone, welcome back to another scrapbook process video, and I hope you guys are all having a really good day. Today I am following a sketch yet again from, this is from Scrapbook Generations, so over National Scrapbook Day weekend, they had like a big online crop event, and I want to say it was only like $10, and you got, I thought it was a really good deal. You got, for 4 days, I believe it was 4 days, you got 4 sketches each day, plus I believe also some card sketches. So if you're a card maker, got sketches for that as well. Um, and then there was a whole bunch of other stuff you could participate in. My anniversary falls May 3rd, and so I don't often get to participate in National Scrapbook Day things. Yeah, that's one thing that I probably would change if I could change anything, but that's totally fine. I've got plenty of other time to scrapbook. So, anyways, I am following along with the sketch. I believe this is day one, and it's sketch number 2, maybe. To be honest, I thought I had it next to me and I can't find it. And I wanted to go ahead and get this voiceover done for you guys. So, but it is one of the first day sketches. And the sketch calls for these banners to go across to both your double page layouts. And by the way, I really enjoyed almost all the sketches. I don't think there's any of the sketches that I don't like from that weekend. So keep an eye out if that's something you've never done before, even if you don't participate like I didn't. It's a really, the sketches alone are a great value for what you get. So I pulled out this collection, and I think it's All American or America by Bella Boulevard. And I think I looked this up and it was like 2012. I could be totally wrong, but it's definitely an older collection. And I don't have very much of it left at all. Uh, I did look it up. I don't know if it's available anywhere. Maybe they'll re-release something. You never know. I wouldn't mind if they came out with another good 4th of July collection. I love their 4th of July collections. The colors you can see on the screen are just beautiful. So I do pull in, while making this layout, quite a few tools for my own, from my own stash, just because I didn't have a ton of things from this collection. But it was actually rather fun to pull in from my stash, which I'm actually trying to do in a lot on a lot of my layouts. Like I've mentioned before, using metal dies. I think I've used metal dies on almost all my layouts lately. And this one, I also use some of my metal dies. You'll see as we go along. So the sketch basically calls for these strips that go along both double pages, like I mentioned. And then it's going to call for like a big photo block on the left-hand page. So this one with the full strips is the left-hand page. You could also switch it around, vice versa. But for me, it is my left-hand page. And I'm being a little finicky about the distance between these strips, but I wanted it to be fairly close together. And when I first glued them down, I wasn't paying that much attention. So you're seeing me mess around quite a bit here. I did go ahead and cut all the strips fairly simple. On the right-hand side, however, the strips, you might have seen some of them cut into banners. They don't go all the way to the right-hand edge. So they just end with the little banner folds there at the bottom of those strips. So it gives a lot of interest. I think it'd be fun if you did this for the 4th of July. I never really thought about this when I was making this layout, but just came to my mind. If you did red, white, and blue stripe, and because since they kind of mimic the flag, I guess, or a flag, you could use this. It doesn't have to necessarily be an American flag. It could be any flag. So that's just a couple ideas. I'm not sure why I decided to pick, I think I just found the number of photos. I've had some questions about like spreadsheets and what I do and how I organize my photos. I am working on that a little bit. That's a video that's going to take a little bit of time. So feel free to keep asking questions. And when I do a video, I will definitely show you. But one of the things I keep in my spreadsheets is the number of photos. So for this event, I believe there's 5 photos. So this sketch also called for 5 photos. So when I wanted to pull out photos to use for this sketch, I just searched the number 5 and these popped up and I thought, okay, I'm going to use these photos. So, uh, but yeah, I do have a video coming up, or not coming up, it's in the works. How about that? Where I discuss and talk about that stuff even more. The other thing that, since I'm talking about that, and I just pulled out some peel offs, what you see, those little sticker sheets on the right hand side of the screen, the blue, the red, and the silver, are peel offs. And I've had a lot of question, like people are, what the heck are peel offs? So I wanted to let you know I'm also doing a video where I talk about them and show them to you a little bit because I absolutely love them. I am newer to that. Oh, by the way, the borders that I'm playing with right now are like some really old, I think they're Queen and Company. They're really old and they look actually pretty good on the screen. But when I was making this layout, I just could not get those to look, they just didn't look right. And I don't know if it was the colors. I think one of the biggest things about not wanting to use these strips is um, those wavy strips, I think is because I didn't really have any more rhinestones. I guess because that's kind of what they look like, gems. Um, I didn't have any of those to add to the very far right of the page, and I didn't want them to be completely separate. So back to the peel offs. You're going to see me use some here. And like I said, I am making a video or going to make a video here soon just talking about them. But this is my first time using one of like the borders. So they're all kind of border or strips, I guess, but this one is like called Star Border, I believe is what the official name of it is. And I love the way these turned out. I've been kind of like, well, are they going to look kind of cheap or like not, like they don't fit on the layout, but these ones, they were great. They were perfect for this layout. If you do have these, they can be very finicky. I don't know, you're going to see them kind of stick into my hands. They stretch, just so you know, so be very careful. I did try to use my T-square ruler there and line them up. It it helped. They are fairly straight. But yeah, they can be a little finicky, but as you can see there, I took 2 strips and lined them up like I do with a lot of my peel offs on my layouts, and I can't even tell. If I looked at the layout, I would have to actually look for the spot that I lined them up and connected them together. The other great thing about these star or butterfly, I believe they have star, heart, butterfly, possibly, no, I don't think they have circle. They used to have bubbles, which was similar, but I don't think she makes that shape as much. There is a few that I think that you can buy. However, the cool thing about them is you can use the little shapes that are inside. So the empty spaces of the stars currently are still on the sticker sheet. And I do sprinkle those around the rest of the page to bring that same silver color around the page. I sprinkle them in each one of my clusters. So I was pretty happy the first time using it. Like I said, again, just watch out because they can be a little finicky, stretchy, but a little bit of playing with them and it's not that hard to use. So for these 3 photos that are going to go on the left hand side, I am lining them up just like, I think my sizes are a little bit different than the sizes that it called for on the sketch. But you can see here that I'm going to be using that Perfect Layers ruler. That thing, not only can you get really great borders around your photos or whatever you want to mat, but it really helps to line up photos or anything. So you can see I'm just butting it up against the edge of one photo. You can't measure because there's no measurements in between, but then I just keep it aligned against the first photo and then set the second photo down and I can easily make sure that they're aligned. Now on this opposite side, because I didn't cut mine the greatest, as you could see probably a second ago. I had to go and recut that middle photo. I have no idea. Sometimes I feel like I cut things or I count things. I just finished making some Christmas cards and I swear that I had 20 of each, but I went to make them and I counted over and over and over. I even kept little tally sheets, and sure enough, I was short one on some of the things I needed. So, anyways, I digress. Now, I wanted to give you a little trick or tip when you are putting this layout together. Be careful. As you can see, I have currently my layout where the photos are on it now, and the strip for the red strip is at the top, but my banners are opposite on the bottom. And I panicked. I'm like, okay, great. What do I do now? I didn't think at the time, but I could easily have just turned the right hand page and made it into the left hand page and switched it around. But actually, what I end up discovering is that I just put my photos on upside down. So I take them off. I think that I lost a little bit of footage that I didn't have, so you don't see me do that. But just be careful before you start gluing a bunch of things down that your banners are lined up and are the same colors. So here you can see this is where I lost a little bit of footage, but I've gone ahead and I have die cut a bunch of stars, and I believe that was also on the sketch was stars, but the stars can represent anything. You don't have to necessarily use just stars, but since it's a 4th of July layout, then yeah, of course I want to use stars. And all the ones that I have die cut out are by Pretty Pink Posh. There might be some other smaller ones that are not from them, but I believe the die set by Pretty Pink Posh is just textured stars or stitched stars, something like that. I will link them below because I think they are still available in case you're interested. And I believe the paper that I used, I'm not sure on this one, but I think when I pulled it out, the texture and the way that it embossed, so the stars, the stitch star dies, as you can see on the left-hand screen, some have circles, some have stripes, and one other thing that I can't remember, it seems like, or maybe they were just stitched stars. But anyways, I believe the way that they turned out the paper that I used was the Tim Holtz, like an old, I've had it for a long time. I don't have my paper pads together for like my specialty paper. I have like all the blues together with blue. So that's why I'm not 100% sure. But the red and the blue paper, if I can find it, I'll link it below. But I believe it is a Tim Holtz paper. And one thing that I loved about or love about his paper is the fact that you can get such a great embossed design. So the stars, like I mentioned, have that embossed design on it already. I didn't add that separately. That is part of the Pretty Pink Posh dies. So just wanted to share that. I love the texture that it adds to the layout though. And I chose for each cluster one to have circles and blue. So all the blue ones, okay, there's a couple smaller blue ones that don't have the circles, but all the main bigger blue ones have the circles. And then out of the red, I cut all the ones with the stripes. And it turned out really cute. I love how this layout turned out. I love, like I mentioned, the texture that you get from those dies. And this paper, I'm pretty sure, I kind of want to pull up one of the stars now and look because I want to say on the back side of the Tim Holtz paper it's brown, but anyways, there's a lot of specialty cardstock that you could use and get this same texture out of them. I haven't cut these stars out of just regular cardstock, so I'm not sure how they cut out there, but I'm sure that somewhere on their design team or people have been using it. It's an older die, so um, I'm pretty sure that you would get that same texture. I just really love the red and blue. The other thing, so I mentioned some of the stars are just regular stitch stars, and I'm going to pull some of those in. And now, right now, I'm just playing with my clusters. So like I mentioned, I have a blue circled one, bigger one, a red, bigger striped one, and then the silver outline. I really debated about the silver outlined one because I really like the look. I believe she might have had it on her sketch, having like an outline type star. My biggest thing was that you could see through to the back where, like the lines, like where the one is on the very left hand side at the top. You can see like the stripe strip go down in between it. And that was just kind of throwing me off a little bit. So I decided to go ahead and play with that a little bit. And in each cluster, also, by the way, I did happen to luck out and I just randomly had 3 circle stickers from this collection on, I think there's one collection sheet and, or excuse me, one sticker sheet that came with the collection. I think this was back before Bella Boulevard got big into ephemera pieces, but I could be wrong. Anyways, so I just wanted to throw that in there that I did happen to be able to add that circle into each cluster. And I love the way that that just kind of adds a little something to each cluster. So what I mentioned just a moment ago, what I decided to do was to take these outline circles or stars, excuse me, and make them into shakers. So I know when a layout is in an album, you're not really going to get the shaker effect, but the thickness that I might use the 2 millimeter scrapbook.com foam adhesive strips. I can't really, they don't really look that thick on the layout now. So, but either one would work. However, it wasn't very thick. So the confetti that I used, if you're going to use thicker type confetti, I would definitely use a thicker foam adhesive. But the one that I use, the confetti that I use is just some confetti. I think I got it in a little bottle at Michael's. If you look around like the Tim Holtz stuff at the Michael's store, they have like little bottles of confetti. And I think it's mostly made for card makers, but I have multiple different ones. And a long time ago, I haven't done it recently, but I love taking the confetti and like pouring it in a little jar or dish or something and sprinkling it around the page for just little bits of almost like enamel dots in each cluster. So I have some of these transparency sheets. You don't need to buy any special transparency sheets. To be honest, they can be pretty spendy. I got these quite a few years ago as well, a big pack of them. They might possibly make cheaper ones now again. I've had mine for a while, so I don't know. But I went ahead and I used some wet glue and I let the glue dry quite a bit so that it will actually hold. And then I put the stars on the transparency sheet and you could, it'd be just as easy to run the transparency sheet with one of your dies through a die cutter, and then you wouldn't have to size it like I did, cut it down with your scissors, because it's not perfect at all. But I think it works just fine either way. If you run the transparency through your die cutting machine, what I would suggest is putting the die, then the transparency, and then adding another piece of scrap cardstock, because that will push through. If you don't add that extra layer, it might not go all the way through the transparency. So I just decided not to fiddle with that and just glued my stars down and cut around them. But either way works really well. Just make sure, again, that the glue is dry. So now you can see I'm going ahead and I'm adding in my foam tape and these little strips. I have to tell you, they are finicky. That's why I'm thinking it was the 1 millimeter, because the 2 millimeters doesn't seem to be as finicky when it comes to these little strips. But when you're doing something like this, oh man, I was going a little crazy because they were sticking to me. The backing kept coming off. If I barely pulled one of the strips off the sticker sheet, it the backing started coming off. It was driving me crazy. So that's why I love I love their foam adhesive. I love their 1 millimeter. I can't say that I love the strips. But that's kind of the reason why. Anyways, so what I did was then I took the backing off, and instead of gluing down or trying to fill the shaker part while it's in the shape, I'm going to add the shaker confetti pieces down onto the layout. And another reason I mean, that's the best way, because otherwise you'd have to like flip your layout and try to figure out where it was lined up, or back it with another piece of the transparency, which I wasn't going to do. So you can see here, I just go ahead and add some to the layout, and then I put the star on top. I did make sure, because I knew that that circle had foam adhesive already underneath it. So I made sure to go ahead and, oh, yep, I saw by the way, I just saw the back of these stars and they're brown. So that is Tim Holtz paper from a very long time ago. Again, if I can find it, I will link it below. But instead of filling up a second or adding a second transparency, um, I went ahead and just added the confetti to the layout. And then before I did that, I did make sure where the foam adhesive that's under the circle didn't bump into the star. So I did trim off one of the edges of the points of the star, and I went ahead and added some more foam tape where I kind of trimmed it off at, because you don't want your confetti to fall out either. It'd have to be a pretty big space of foam tape for my confetti to fall out of that shaker. But also be aware, though, you do want your foam to be fairly close together. Um, Otherwise, you are going to find all the confetti down at the bottom of your page protector, which might actually be kind of cool. It'd be kind of neat to see an entire layout done where maybe you use your fuse tool and close the top of the page protector, and then the whole thing is a big giant shaker. That might actually be kind of interesting and fun to try sometime. Uh, I know that they make the cards nowadays where it's like the entire front of the card is just one big shaker. So it would be similar to that. But again, since it is a layout and it's in a page protector, really doesn't get much shaking around. But that's the other neat thing about not having such thick foam adhesive, is I don't really want that space for them to all fall down to the bottom, which might be actually why I used the thinner foam adhesive, because I wanted some of the star shape confetti to get stuck around and not be able to move too much. But I love how it turned out. And so that left me able to use the outlined star like I wanted to use. This little tiny one here was a little bit harder to get just those itty bitty pieces in without having them get stuck between the foam adhesive and the paper. But that way I could use the star, the outline star, and it didn't show through. I mean, you can still see the stripe in the background, but it's definitely less obvious with the shaker pieces inside. So it was fun. It adds something else to this layout, because there's not a lot to this layout. I love how it turned out. So you don't need a ton of stuff on your layouts. And I love the texture and the stars. That adds enough, you know, the shape shaker, the different circles and stripes on the stars, and then just the little bit of stitching on the littler stars. They do all have that kind of fake stitching look going around the outside of all of them. But with all those things together, and then the circle stickers, it gives what you need for this layout, plus the pattern paper in the background. So here you can see me cutting out. I love my Anna machine. If you guys have any questions about those machines, they are so worth the money. Let me tell you, the amount of times I've been able to use my plates and they haven't worked at all in the least, like maybe ever so slightly. But if they do, you just like change the way you're sending it through. It's amazing. I love that machine. Anyways, I just had to throw that in there since I was using that machine. I have to kind of pull it down in each of the videos. I have to tell you, it's so nice too. Even if you don't want the giant one, you can get one of the small ones. They're really lightweight and they pull. Like I can pull that one off my shelf, put it there. It doesn't take up much room. I did used to have one of those smaller, like Sizzix sidekicks or something, whatever it was called. And I thought that was convenient. But this one you can actually use a little bit bigger dies on, and it doesn't take up much more space. So I just had to say that. I love the Anna. Is not the Anna. I guess that's what we all call ours, but the Empress, Empress Mini. I don't know if she changed the name of them now or not, but so you can see me working on my right-hand cluster now, and I'm just adding a bunch of different stars around. When it comes to the stars and the clusters, I don't really pay too much attention to what's on the sketch. I usually just get my papers down and then the embellishments, I kind of go from there. And there I was shaking them up, but that was mostly to just get, oh, here's the sticker sheet, by the way. And I do believe the collection is all American, but oh, this is the part that's going to drive me crazy. I love the font for this alphabet, and I really thought I could use it. It's not going to work. I am so bummed. I'm going to try using this font multiple different times, and it's just not going to work. I do, however, come back to it later on. And off screen, I mean, I tried, you can see I cut out the year with some alphabet numbers or numbers, die cut numbers. That didn't work. And so finally, after digging around, I mean, I cut out so much of me digging around and trying to find something that will work. I finally decided to go with these, and these are really old fancy pants, maybe. I don't know. If you guys know, I don't know. They're not stickers. They're like little chipboard. I've used a very tiny glue dot to put them on that sheet because I was tired of digging through every time I wanted to know what alphabet letters I had. So I did take one tiny little glue dot and glued them each to those two sheets so I could see what I had. And I've actually used them more since doing that than I did before. And you can see I'm still trying my hardest to use that red alphabet, but it's just not working. And I've got to be really careful since I printed these photos at home. And you guys know if you print your photos at home that things that stick to them can really stick to them. So what I decide to go and do is just stick with this blue. This blue went fairly well. By the way, the blue that I used for the main photo strip on the left-hand side and behind my photo here on the right-hand side was from a Bella Besties. This was not part of the collection. I didn't have enough of the collection left over to have another blue to mount the photos or for the photo strip. So I did pull out a Bella Bestie. And these alphabet letters really go really well with the same color. It's like the same color blue, just a little bit darker. So here I am. I'm also looking at these alphabet little square alphabets that I had, and I didn't want to do blue. That was too much blue for me. I was really hoping to find a red that would work. Um, the reds that I had, unfortunately, the other thing I didn't want was white letters on a red background. That just, I didn't like the way it looked because that got lost in the background of the red pattern paper that was there. So I was given up and I was about ready to go ahead and glue down the the blue letters, but for the word of, by the way. Um, then I just happened to look at the sticker sheet and there was the words written out 4th of July. And so I just trimmed that out of the saying. And I thought I can still use the other words in smaller sections, which I think I do. Yeah, it said Happy 4th of July. So on the left-hand side, you might see it at the end. I don't remember if I leave it in the video or not. I do add a couple words around. And the word happy, which ends up on the left-hand page in the bottom cluster, is from that same sticker strip too. So I can still use the other words and it works out just fine. And I got this with the red and it looks so much better. So that made me really happy. Now with the word 4th of July, it got a little bit lost just sitting down on the paper. So for the number 4 and for the word July, I am adding some adhesive strips. Just so you know, when you're adding it when you're playing with foam adhesive, if you want the foam adhesive to like bend in a, like say a curve or something like that, you can take the backing off and it will bend so much easier. If you leave both sides of the like sticker paper on it, it won't bend as well. But if you take both sides off, you can definitely like make it curve so much easier. It actually is kind of surprising how well you can make it curve. So, but I wanted those to stand out just a little bit. I was kind of hoping to have a smaller TH, but I'm glad that I ended up with what I did because I do like that it fills that space with so much of the dark color. Wasn't really crazy about it at the time. Again, was looking for, that was part of what I was doing when looking for my alphabet letters. Um, was trying to find something for the TH. I also tried spelling out the word fourth and nothing was working. But now I'm sprinkling around, like I mentioned in the beginning, the little star shapes that are part of the star borders. And by the way, the extra star border pieces that I have kept those. I didn't do it off camera, but those are just sitting to the side and I do add them back to the sheet and they're ready to go so I can use them next time. So anyways, that is the end of my layout. I did start to look for word stickers here. I didn't show this entire process. I did ink all my edges in case you didn't catch that. I hope you guys like this video. There is a close-up I wanted to add of one of the shaker stars, and it just turned out so cute. I love how this layout turned out. Um, if you guys have any questions, let me know below. Let me know if you like this video, and I thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to see you next time. And by the way, I also added stitching to all of the banners because I thought that mimicked, yet again, flag. See you next time. Bye.